All right. August 11th.
Dean Arnold.
Welcome to the Dean Arnold Podcast. Sure. We're going to talk about the Shroud of Turin. Yeah, why not? I'm a couple minutes late today when I put out my cattle call that we're going to start at noon. I started at 12:02, which is no big deal. Based on today's rules, you can do that. I'm just old school. If I say noon, I want to start at noon. But there was one particular video that I couldn't. I had it and then I lost it. So I worked hard to get it because I love you guys. And I want you to have the best. So you're going to get the best today because we're going to talk about the Shroud of Turin. Is it real? I think so. I'll explain to you why. Does it prove Christianity? Probably not. But it's like a lot of things with faith. You kind of have enough evidence to support your faith and not quite enough to convince the idiot skeptic who's got his own agenda, is not really trying to find the truth. It's not going to help you there. That person's probably only going to be helped by being loved and forgiven and that sort of thing. But we are going to talk about this shroud. It's a cool thing, man. So let's go ahead and, go down that road. I actually have a personal story related to the Shroud of Turin that I'll share at the end. So I'm looking forward to that. Any other thing I can highlight? I don't think so. Almost went and visited it. I went to Italy about a year ago for a week. And I went to Bologna, which is middle of Italy, closer to Rome and Florence. And it's known as the food capital of Italy, and I'm all about Italian food. So I went there. But I almost went way up north to Turin just because Shroud of Turin's there. I was like, man, I'd like to go do that. But I didn't. Mainly because you can't see the Shroud of Turin. They got it locked up. They bring it out once in a while. But you go to Shroud of Turin. You go to Turin. Let's see. I didn't have time to do all my due diligence, but let's see. Icon close-up chapel. Here we go. This is the chapel in northern Italy, right on the line of Switzerland, where the Shroud of Turin is contained. So if I'd have gone to Turin, I'd have seen that chapel, and hey, pretty cool. I'd still like to go, but you don't get to see the shroud itself. Let's move on to the scripture of the day, and got a couple good ones. Ooh, this one has to go. There we go. All right. Let's start with 2 Corinthians 2. Now, thanks be to God who always leads us in triumph in Christ and through us diffuses the fragrance of his knowledge in every place. So this is one of the great, victorious verses. Always leads us in triumph. It's a little deeper than that. You might get tortured and killed, beheaded, but you're always leading in triumph. It takes a lot of faith. It's true, but it's not necessarily what you're thinking about on the face of it. Next verse. For we are to God the fragrance of Christ among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. Other translations say the aroma of Christ. Both are good. To the one, we are the aroma of death leading to death, and to the other, the aroma of life leading to life. And who is sufficient for such things, for such a task, some translations say. We could read more, but I'm going to leave it there. This is a great verse. This is basically Paul telling us, hey, if you're in Christ, like I am, you got some people who are going to love you. You got some people who are going to hate you. And there's nothing you can do about it. You're going to be loved and you're going to be hated. If you want to avoid that polarity and that difficulty, don't follow Christ. compromise, be plain Jane vanilla, and you can avoid being loved or hated. But if you want to be loved and, well, if you are prepared in Christ, you're going to be loved and hated. It's that aroma, the beautiful perfume of the loveliness of Christ, or the deathly stench of feces and rotting carcasses to those who hate Jesus Christ. And there's a lot of them. There are a lot more of them than there are the other. Wide is the road that leads to destruction. So, count the cost. That's what it means to be in Christ. But it's a great verse. It reminds you. Let's go to the gospel today. I don't think I'll read the whole thing, but I'm going to read a lot of it because here's Jesus, the nice Jesus, not always. Oh, my godson Jay Dyer out there on the orthosphere on the internet, he's always getting criticized for being mean, kind of like Trump's mean tweets. Now, Trump's problem was not mean tweets. Trump's problem is he did an about face, and he was a hypocrite. He didn't believe what he said. Jay's not a hypocrite. Jay's telling the truth. But sometimes he has to be firm and tell it like it is. And you know what? Jesus was the same way. Jesus did mean tweets once in a while. So here's near the end of the Gospel of Matthew where he starts to do some mean tweets. Let's read a few of them. Verse 23, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, Jewish leaders, for you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith. These you ought to have done without leaving the others undone. Reminds me of like they're crucifying Jesus. They do a mock trial, a sham trial to get the guy killed who was completely innocent. They bring up false witnesses who lie. But then as it's getting dark, they're concerned because there's a guy on the cross and it's about to become Sabbath. And they want to make sure they, observe all the Sabbath laws. What a bunch of hypocrites. Man, they were just weak, lame. But that's the kind of thing Jesus is talking about. Verse 24, blind guides who strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cleanse the outside of the cup, but inside you are full of extortion and self-indulgence, full of dead man's bones and all uncleanness. Last verse, even so you also outwardly appear righteous to men, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Mean tweets from Jesus. Nothing's changed. It's still the same. All right. I guess we'll move now to the saint of the day. Interesting little saint story. I like it. Could have gone another direction, but I thought this was good. Let me bring it up. Martyrs, Basil and Theodore of the Kiev caves. Okay, let's not forget that this is Ukraine. Capital Ukraine is Kiev. And it is an ancient 1,000-year-old Christian territory with wonderful saints and traditions and following of Christ. And as soon as Zelensky took power, he started persecuting these Christians, arresting the priests and damaging the chapels, taking them over, desecrating them. It's a terrible tragedy. It's not too much different from what the Bolsheviks, who are also Jews like Zelensky, did to the Christian Russians. Anyway, we're in Kiev here. This is 11th century. So this is at the time of Vladimir. Well, 100 years after Vladimir. And so there was a guy named Theodore, and he wanted to follow Christ, so he took all his riches and distributed it to the poor, and went to the Varangian cave adjoining the caves of St. Theodosius. You see this in saint stories again and again and again, where the saint starts out wealthy, got it made, got life by the whatever, and then he gives away all his possessions to the poor, and he goes and follows Christ as an ascetic. And I think we take it for granted too much, but that's a big deal. If I was worth $10 million, $20 million. Would I give it all away and go follow Christ? I don't know. Probably not. I probably think of all kind of things to do with that money. But these saints, it happens again and again. They were wealthy and they gave all their money away to the poor and went and followed Christ. Props, respect. So this is what St. Theodore did. And when he got to the monastery, the caves, the enemy aroused sorrow in him for giving away his money. And St. Basil, who was also there, said, "Hey, I implore you, Brother Theodore, do not forget the reward. If you want possessions, take everything that I got." So Theodore just loved St. Basil. He was Basil at the time. He wasn't Saint. With whom he lived in the cell. They were roommates. Once Basil had an errand outside the monastery for 3 months, and so the devil saw his opportunity, assumed his form, appeared to St. Theodore, and indicated that there was a treasure hidden somewhere in the cave by robbers. The monk still wanted to leave the monastery to buy possessions to live in the world. So when St. Basil returned, the demonic illusion disappeared. From that time, St. Theodore started to be more attentive to himself. In order to not be distracted by idle thoughts during moments of inactivity, he set up a millstone, and by night he ground grain. So he just got busy and started working hard all the time. And that got him off it. We did a podcast, a week ago, about overcoming pornography and how hard that is. Well, here was a besetting sin of Theodore where he's loved money. How's he going to get over it? Well, when it push came to shove, he went and got a millstone and started grinding grain all day and doing hard work and doing all sorts of things. It was work, but he did it. Thus, by long and zealous ascetic action, he freed himself from the passion of avarice. Nice. Well, the local prince governor, he got wind that apparently there was treasure in the cave of St. Theodore. There wasn't, but the rumor got around. So he summoned Theodore, and Theodore says he'd once seen gold, but fearing temptation, he and Basil had buried the treasure, and God took from him the memory of where it was hidden. So the prince didn't believe him. He ordered him to be tortured. They beat St. Theodore so much that his hair shirt was wet with blood, and then they hung him head downwards, lighting a fire beneath him. Nice, nice, nice. In a drunken condition, the prince commanded them to torture also St. Basil and to kill him with an arrow. While he was dying, Martyr Basil threw an arrow at the feet of Prince Mstislav and predicted that he himself would soon be mortally wounded. And in fact, he was in a battle a little bit later. So a couple of wonderful monastic saints who conquered the devil and his temptations of avarice and greed and money. A little bit unique of a story in that way, and that's why I chose to review it today. But Theodore and Basil, 1000 AD in Kiev, Ukraine, Russia. Love it. All right, let's talk about the Shroud of Turin. And bear with me, I got to bring up that's not what I want. Okay, Shroud Raw. Okay, not yet. Here's a picture of the Shroud of Turin. I think in some videos I'm going to show you, you're going to see it. It's more, take those two rectangles and put them this way. And it was 14. The shroud is 14 feet long by 4 feet wide. But they took these two sections, and I hope you can see it, but it's, does this make a difference for you? It does for me. But it's hard to see it, but the imprint of Jesus, some kind of man, is in the background on both of these. A and B. You can see the head near the top. In the middle, you can see his hands folded over each other, and then you got some legs going down the bottom. Anyway, that's what the Shroud of Turin looks like. I think I've already mentioned to you that Turin is in northern Italy, the chapel. It's been there for a long time. We'll talk more about that. But let me show you the money shot, which causes people to say, "Whoa, what the heck we got going on here?" Here it is. All right. So when you look, I guess that's a negative of it. It certainly looks like a man. Looks like a man with a beard. Looks like a man with beard with somewhat long hair, with his hands folded over himself. All the experts agree that, first of all, this image is mostly, there's a lot of blood on it. It's also an image of burning the linen. We'll get into that, but that's from the power of the resurrection and the light that, hit the linen. But yeah, all the experts agree that there's wound marks in his hands, his feet, on his side, crown of thorns. It's all there. And there's a lot of blood just in general because he was scourged and tortured in that kind of way. And they say the blood only stays red in a situation like this if there was trauma, if the guy was tortured. Well, Christ was tortured. And so it has remained red. All right, pretty cool stuff. Let's remove that. Let me bring up my little notes here. I'm running for Congress. Vote for me in November. DeanArnoldForCongress.com is where you can give, like, share, and subscribe. Questions, comments, very much appreciated, especially on an interesting podcast like this. I'm bringing sanity to an insane world. Yes, sanity on the Shroud of Turin, which we need badly. There's a lot of deception involved, and it makes me mad. We'll talk about it. Okay. So if you Google the Shroud of Turin or look it up on Wiki, what are they going to tell you? They're going to tell you old news. Not only old news, but old news and fake news. I use Wikipedia a lot. I appreciate Wikipedia, but you got to take it with a grain of salt. A lot of times they lie based on their agenda, and this is certainly one of them. So if you Google or Wiki Shroud of Turin, they're going to say, oh, there was carbon testing done that showed that it was 1300s. It's not the time of Christ. And so that's what they do to debunk it. They don't want to have to deal with it. And it's a pernicious lie. It's awful. There's a guy who does a TED Talk, this Jewish guy, about how he was sent to go photograph the Shroud of Turin, and one thing led to another. Next thing you know, he's a follower of Jesus. It's a TED Talk. What's the guy's name? I wrote it down. Barry Schwartz. So it's worth looking at. But this supposed debunking of the Shroud was done in 1988, I think. It's fake. Pernicious lie. Terrible. Okay, why? Well, number of reasons. Let's start with, got to bring up an image. Bear with me. There we go. Look right there. They took a little corner of the shroud. They didn't go into the middle and test the middle of the shroud. They went up into a corner where there was this patch. Okay? It was a patch used to patch up the shroud. They were kind of fixing a jagged edge in the corner of the shroud. So they took another piece of cloth and kind of put it on there to, whatever. And that's the part they carbon tested. And every time you read about the carbon testing, 3 independent labs tested it. 3 independent labs. It was tested by 3 independent labs. Well, all 3 independent labs tested the freaking fake later on patch. Reminds me of when the deep state says 53 intelligence agencies all agreed. 53 intelligence agencies all agreed. When they say that, it's fake. They're lying. Well, they're lying here. 3 independent labs tested the Shroud of Turin, and carbon testing science proved that it was in the 1300s. Well, no, actually not. Other scientific testing and the X-ray wave testing showed it to be 1st century. This makes me mad. You know, it makes me mad. I want to think bad things when I think about how they lie about this. But, you know, lying's been with us for a long time. Deep state, pernicious liars have been with us for a long time. But what's the other thing it does? It makes me think, you know, that shroud might be real. If they're lying like this about it, God, that must be real. It's kind of like the COVID thing. Man, if they're saying all this stuff about it, I got a feeling that this vaccine might not be so good. And this COVID thing might not be as bad as they say. And 53 intelligence agencies, that sounds to me like a little bit of overkill. Thou dost protest too much. And here we got 3 independent labs carbon tested the fake patch. Anyway, it makes me think that there may be something to the Shroud of Turin. What else? There's a pollen flora called vanillin that should be on this patch or on this shroud, and it's not. And they tested it and showed that the pollen grains on the actual shroud match Middle Eastern flora. Okay. They also found a piece of linen in Masada, which was destroyed in 64 AD, right above Jerusalem. Pretty much matches the fibers of the shroud, so that points us to a 1st century dating. The blood stuff all matches correctly. I can't get into all that, but all the experts agree that paint didn't do this. It's blood. It's not paint. All right. I'll show you a couple of videos that I think help buttress our point here. Let's remove that. Let's get rid of it. Let's share the screen. All right. I got to get my stuff here. Mind-blowing evidence. I think that's the one I want. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, mind-blowing evidence. That's what I want. Okay. Bear with me, guys. Sorry. Shroud of Turin. Man, I'm really choking here, and I hate it. Wayne. Shroud of Turin. Man, Dean, you stink. I think this is it. If not, we'll just play this one. Okay. Let me turn up the sound, make sure you can hear it well. And let's hear what this guy has to say.
I mean, this is like a CSI experiment. When you look at the shroud, it's amazing. And then we have the Sudarium of Oviedo in Spain, which is the face cloth that John's gospel talks about that covered his face, that was in the corner of the tomb when the disciples came to see that the tomb was empty that first Easter morning in John chapter 20. So, and that cloth also has human blood. Guess what the blood type is? Type AB. You can't make this stuff up. It's mind-boggling.
All right, so that was simple there. This guy, he had another video that I couldn't quite find that had even better, scientific-y kind of talk. But here's the real one I want to show you. Let's see how we do here. All right, come on, be the right one.
You look at it, the Shroud of Turin is scientific proof of the physical bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I believe that based on the evidence in the 102 academic disciplines that have studied over 600,000 research hours in it. I believe that because I'm not irrational. So I went from skeptic to believing in it based on the science. And here's what I like to tell people. And Bruno says, Jeremiah, there is a 1 in 200 billion chance it is not the historical Jesus.
1 in 200 billion.
Based on his mathematical probability. So Bruno, are you saying that you believe that this was the Jesus of the Bible who was crucified and who this image is? He said, yes. How can I not believe that? The probability compels me to believe. He put his hands up like that. According to my other friend, Paulo de Lazzaro of Enea Laboratories outside of Rome, the amount of energy it would take to see what I just
All right, I got one more to show you. I'm kind of failing with my technologies, and I'm sorry about that. But I want to, it's supposed to start with mind-blowing, and I'm just doing terrible. I'm very sorry. That's probably it. No, maybe not. Is that it? Is that it? This is it. Daggone it. That was just really lame. Oh, I apologize. And let's play it.
traveling at 1/40th of a billionth of a second to leave an image on the shroud. We're talking about energy, cold energy, and this is the moment of resurrection.
How was the image made?
So the shroud is not a death cloth, it's a resurrection cloth.
Wow.
So I'm meeting with Paulo and I'm like, so are you saying it's Jesus? He's like, well, of course. 34 billion watts of energy traveling at 1/40th of a billionth of a second. Reminds me of all these passages, because think about it. Jesus, every time he manifests himself in the New Testament, he manifests himself as brilliant lights. The new heaven and the new earth someday will have no need for the sun.
Great amount of light.
I just want to point that out for listeners. Yeah, trace that real quick,
Okay,
because you got transfiguration. His face was changed, became like lightning.
Yep.
You got revelation.
Yep.
Same
but
thing.
you have Paul, and I have filmed on Roman roads at noonday, okay, and in the land of Israel.
Okay, so he's talking about how Paul saw all this light on the road, you know, to Damascus. And let me bring myself up here. So the point here is, okay, it kind of looks like Jesus, but what the heck's going on here? Why, you know, it's not really blood, although there's blood in all the key wound sections. But what made this image? Well, the theory, which I think is plausible, is that Jesus himself, the center of the cosmos, where all life and energy and force comes from, whose face shone on the Mount of Transfiguration, et cetera, et cetera. So when he rises from the dead, it's not implausible. If there was an incredible thing of light, you know, like lightning, because he's God himself, and that lightning made burn marks on the shroud corresponding to his body and his face. That's the theory. I don't think it's beyond the pale. And so now we have the Shroud of Turin as one of our relics in the church. Now, here's what makes sense to me. If Jesus was your friend, if he was your relative, if you were one of his disciples, would you just grab the burial cloths and just kind of throw them in the trash? No, I don't think you would. I think you'd be guarding those things and be cherishing them most closely. So these burial cloths that we read about in the gospel, several mentions of them with some specificity, they were kept, just like I keep family heirlooms at my house. I've got ancestors with various heirlooms that I guard and treasure. And that's what the church did. So here's these burial cloths. Well, someone's going to keep very close watch on them until at some point they get, you know, I don't know when they got to Turin, but it got to Turin at some point, and we got this big old chapel, and, you know, we got the resources. We're going to keep this thing, and we're going to keep it safe. That totally makes sense to me. And now the fact that it has this, you know, there's no doubt to me that the church is going to keep the burial cloth of Jesus with Jesus's blood on it. Like, duh. The fact that there's this bright light that causes an image of Jesus, that's an added bonus. It's like, okay, well, wasn't really expecting that, but that's pretty darn cool. And I'm glad we've got it. I'm glad it can cause some problems for the atheists and skeptics. It's not going to cause them to believe, but it's kind of fun, and it's kind of fun for us to be able to see it. Oh yeah, let's look at another image that's kind of fun. Bringing it up here. I think I might have failed. There it is. Okay, on the right there is an icon, Orthodox icon of Jesus. It's the oldest icon we really have that's, a full icon, I think. It's in St. Catherine's Monastery in Sinai, Egypt. It's called the Pantocrator. I think it's like 4th or 5th century. Close enough that they still had some oral traditions on what Jesus looked like. On the left is an AI rendering of the Shroud of Turin, of what this man looked like. Looks pretty similar. Pretty cool. All right, let me tell you another story, personal story I've got about the Shroud of Turin, and then we'll wrap it up with some conclusions. So I'm at church, it's about 15 years ago, on a Wednesday night Vesper service, prayer service at our little church of 20 people. And our priest found out that there was this scholar speaking at Bryan College, an hour away. And so he invited him to come to church. And he said, okay. So he came to church. And then my good friend, Brian Lutweiler, who reposed about 6 months ago, who's a great cook and a wine expert and all that kind of stuff, he invited him and the priest, myself, I think Dottie might have been there. I can't remember. Might have been pre-Dottie. Invited us all over for dinner. We had this marvelous dinner, fish, and he's a monk, so I think we had to eat fish, and wonderful wine. So he's this 40-year-old monk, Lebanese Syrian, but he's also a scholar at both Oxford and Harvard. And he is an expert in ancient languages no longer spoken or known. And but anyway, he was tasting these various wines and waxing eloquently on the wines and where they're from and how wine is kind of the bedrock of civilization and that sort of thing. And he's talking to us about Lebanese wines, and it was all kind of really cool stuff. But his the feather in his cap, as far as we were concerned, is he was on the board of directors for the Shroud of Turin, because he was a brilliant linguist, language guy, and he's studying various manuscripts in various places. At this point in time, he was in Berlin, University of Berlin, I guess, and he's looking at these ancient manuscripts, and he comes across in a 6th or 7th century manuscript. He comes across a mention of the Shroud of Turin, which up to then, the only manuscript evidence was like 11th century. And so because of that and this, that, and the other, he found himself on the board of the Shroud of Turin. We talked about it for a long time. He was a great guy, very godly fella. Elia Khalife. And it was a great evening. But I had dinner with a guy who's on the board of directors of the Shroud of Turin. So I enjoyed that. And he's probably still praying for me. He's one of these monks who prays a lot. All right, let's wrap it up here. Oh, questions. I got some questions and comments. I'm glad, because this is a good subject for it. All right. Guard the ark, guard the shroud. I believe they are still being guarded. Okay, very good. I think you've got some people that are in your corner who are willing to do that. Okay, who we got here? Headstone of the corner. I believe our icons share the same similarities. What do you think? I believe our icons share the same similarities. I don't really know what that means. But that it's probably true. If you want to put in a clarification there, Headstone of the corner, I'll be glad to comment on. Thank you for commenting. All right. Sweet Princess Peaches commented a couple days ago. This is one of my favorite subjects. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's a great subject. And that's a good lead in for me to make closing comments. So, okay, Shroud of Turin. Is it real? Is it not real? Our faith doesn't depend on it. It's not the cornerstone of our faith. The cornerstone of our faith is the eyewitness testimonies and the reality of the resurrection. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Which is another reason why this is really such a big deal, is because I think I told you the other day that Orthodox are obsessed with the event of the resurrection. It's the foundation stone of our faith. We're always talking about the myrrh-bearing women who were the first people to get to the tomb. And we're recounting that event again and again and again. Mary Magdalene is such a key witness to the whole thing. Of course, the apostles. But it's a big deal. And so the shroud, the very burial cloth that was in that tomb, is a big deal. And it's important. It's not the foundation of our faith, but it's a nice little supplement. And it doesn't have to, everything doesn't have to rise and fall on the shroud. It can just be a cool thing. It's just like, wow, we still have the burial cloth of Jesus. It physically sits in a certain building. We can look at it and study it. It's got this bonus imprint from supernatural light that burned an imprint of Jesus himself. That's an added bonus. It's not the foundation of our faith, but it is so damn cool. And don't let the liars and the mockers and the atheists and the skeptics steal it from you. I'm so mad at those guys in 1988 who told everybody, and the mainstream media, of course, repeated it, and so is Wikipedia and Google still doing it. 3 independent labs confirmed through carbon dating that it was in 1300. A little patch in the corner, a corrective patch, not part of the shroud. Don't let them steal this from you. The shroud is real. The shroud is a blessing. The shroud is cool. And for no other reason than that, we should enjoy it and be thankful for it and thank God. But the foundation of our faith is the scriptures and the eyewitness testimonies from the people who actually saw Jesus and were at the tomb, and the myrrh bearers and Mary Magdalene and the apostles. That is the foundation of our faith, and we meditate on that again and again and again. But the shroud's a nice little added bonus. And if grandma is bringing you gravy and butter for the dinner table, enjoy the gravy and butter. Don't refuse it. It's not the meal. Sure makes a big difference. All right. I think I've got everything. I'm running for Congress. Vote for me. DeanArnoldForCongress.com. I need some donations. Bring it on, guys. Like, share, and subscribe. I'm bringing sanity to an insane world. And there's insane, and then there's just ungodly, malicious, nasty insane where they just lie about stuff like the Shroud of Turin because they hate God. That's insanity. I'm bringing sanity to an insane world, telling you, enjoy the Shroud of Turin. It's a blessing for us. It's nice that God gave it to us. It is August 11th, and it's time to get out of here. Guys, it's been fun. I had a few technical difficulties, but not too bad. And so now it is time to head on out.
Dean Arnold.
August 11th.